What's up, Corporate Misfits? Welcome to episode 64 of the Corporate Misfit podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Darrington, founder of the Corporate Misfit Club and business strategist for female entrepreneurs who are looking to start, launch, and grow their business. On today's Friday feature, we are chatting with Lauren Keplinger, who started selling on Etsy 6 years ago and scaled it to a full-time business. She's now generating more than $150,000 per year in her business, making handmade, personalized products. She now teaches other women how to build their own full-time creative job of their dreams at creativemomboss.com. All right, let's go ahead and dive in and hear how Lauren left her 9-to-5 to start her own business.
You're listening to the Corporate Misfit Podcast with Brittany Darrington, where female entrepreneurs can get powerful tips and advice on how to start, launch, and grow their business.
So I am so excited to have you today, Lauren. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Okay, so please tell me, how did you get started with Creative Mom Boss?
Yeah, I actually started my Etsy store 6 years ago in 2012. So I had been working in banking, which was like the polar opposite of anything creative. And my husband was in the military at the time. So we were moving really frequently, really frequently. And it was making it really difficult to have any sort of career trajectory. I was having to start over every time we moved, and it was really discouraging.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my first baby, and we were living in a town of like 2,000 people at the time. And so I was staying home with him for a little while because it was a temporary assignment and there was no point in me getting a job. And so I was staying home with him, and I was just really not feeling super fulfilled in that. He was a really fussy baby, and I felt like I needed something that was mentally stimulating. I mean, I think, there's so much value in being home, and it was great that I was able to do that for the time that I was, but it wasn't really something that I wanted to do long term. So I was looking for a way to be able to have flexibility, because my banking job did not offer any sort of flexibility at all. And my husband had deployed to Afghanistan before the birth of our first baby. And I just knew that in a long-term career, I did not want to have to, not be able to have phone calls from him, or not be able to take time off when he came home for his R&R time. So I wanted more flexibility. I started my Etsy shop when my son was about a year, and it kind of just happened that I was in that season of life with a baby. So I made baby gifts and it has just really taken off from there, and it's been amazing.
I love your stuff, by the way. I know that's really hard for especially a mom to start a business, and your husband is out in Afghanistan. How did you mentally kind of prepare for your business?
From the get-go, I think I had sort of a different mentality in that way, because I was always thinking about how to maximize profits and how to decrease the amount of time that I was spending working. And I didn't have a really strong attachment to what I was going to make. So where I have talked to people who have Etsy shops, and they say, but this is what I want to make, or I only want to make one of each of these things. I want this to be my creative outlet. For me, it was a creative outlet, but that was not really my main goal. My main goal was to turn it into a business. So I was really able to follow the customer's direction and what they were looking for and what they were wanting from me, because I wasn't really married to any particular product or idea.
Absolutely. And how did you decide to go with Etsy over Amazon or eBay or some of the other platforms that are out there?
Yeah, well, at the time, this was 6 years ago. So Amazon Handmade didn't exist at the time, and Amazon wouldn't allow you to sell like custom made personalized stuff on the regular Amazon platform. So that one wasn't really an option. And eBay's fees are a lot higher than Etsy's, and there's just sort of a different market. I think now they've come together a little bit more than they were, but still I think eBay is primarily people who are looking for items that are being resold. If you're looking for like a vintage something or I shop on eBay sometimes for like expensive kids clothes that I don't want to pay full price for,
Yes.
but Etsy's market is really cornered on people that are wanting unique handmade gifts. So it's really the prime place if you have something that's really unique or customized or personalized. It really allows an opportunity with a buyer who's specifically looking for that.
Now, what about marketing with Etsy? Did Etsy have like a market, or did you have to still go out and do the legwork and go and find the clients and connect with them and whatnot?
So for me, it's kind of a mix, and I always recommend that people have a mix. I think to maximize Etsy's platform that they've already built is a no-brainer. I mean, you absolutely need to know how to maximize the search that they're providing because it's already built in and they have a huge amount of traffic with people that are looking for this stuff specifically. So that is, I think, the easiest and fastest way to get found. However, I think I think you will sort of hit a wall with just Etsy search engine optimization and relying completely on Etsy. I don't think, just like if you had your business all on Instagram, like it's not really a great business model to rely on somebody else's platform completely. So I definitely recommend that people build a community around their own brand and product so that they are able to market themselves. And I don't have, a lot of people will recommend like really fancy marketing for your Etsy shop. I don't really do. I have an Instagram. I have a Facebook account that I'm not super active with. Instagram is usually what I really participate in the most.
Because you can
And
showcase what you're
yeah, it's a very visual
easy.
platform. It's
Mhm.
great for just, product photos and advertising a sale or whatever you want to do. But I have found really good results with Instagram. And so I think it's a good mixture. I think you should take responsibility and drive traffic. There's a lot of people who are kind of like, I'm not getting found. Oh, well. So, I think if you really want to make it into a successful business, there is some marketing that you need to be doing outside of just Etsy, but Etsy has this huge traffic that's already built in that you should definitely be taking advantage of.
Now, what about juggling motherhood, having your husband away, and also running a business? How do you do it all?
Yeah, well, he's not gone anymore, so it's a
Oh,
lot
good.
easier.
Good, good.
Yeah, he's actually not even in the military anymore. He got out of the active duty part, so that has been a lot easier. And we have 3 kids now, so it has increased as we've gone along. But I think it's always a really hard balance. I think there's no like perfect answer of how you balance it really amazingly. There are times and seasons that I feel like I have got this, like I'm doing awesome. And then there's times that I'm juggling everything and dropping all of the balls. So, my older 2 kids are in school now, which is great. And then my 3-year-old is in daycare from 8 to 3. So that's really helpful to have that carved out work time. There were a lot of years that I spent like trying to work in the margins of nap time and bedtime and weekends. And that is amazing. It's amazing that you have the opportunity to do that. It does get really draining, I think. And then you feel really frantic because if they wake up early, you're like, I don't have time for this. You have got to go back to bed. and it got to the point sort of that I felt like I don't want to be sitting and rocking my baby thinking like, you have got to go to sleep. I have stuff I got to get done. So that was the point that I first, when my youngest one was a baby, I hired a nanny that came a couple hours a day just to have that dedicated work time and to really be able to like efficiently use that time. And then now that she's a little bit older, she likes going to daycare. So it's worked well. But I think that that's a really hard balance. And I think that there's a lot of mom guilt surrounding it. So I think that you just have to be confident that you're doing the best that you can in your situation. And also that, the seasons of life change really rapidly with kids. So.
What about managing your time? So I know you mentioned now you have like a system in place for the kids and they're in school and things like that, but how do you manage your day and really, just be able to conquer everything? Because a lot of people struggle with time management, especially when they start their business.
Yeah, I think time management is really difficult. And I think it's almost harder working at home because there's always things to do around the house and with your family. I mean, it really can be a full-time job to be at home all the time. So there's always laundry and cleaning and all of that stuff. So I have to be really regimented about how I do it. Otherwise I end up sort of like wandering and not really accomplishing a lot. So my husband takes the kids to school in the morning and they leave around 7:30, and I set aside about 2 hours to work on email and blog stuff and marketing for Creative Mom Boss. And then I take about 3 or 4 hours and I work on Etsy orders. And then I go back to blog stuff for whatever time I have left until I pick the kids up. And that works really well for me because I find that my productivity with both of those goes down after a couple hours.
Oh,
So
yeah.
flip flop back and forth. It helps me to stay the most productive throughout the day.
Okay. So you mentioned that you were doing, shipping out orders and things like that. Do you ever, do you hire outsourcing or any virtual assistants to help you to keep up with emails or any blogging information or marketing or things like that?
I do not.
Wow.
But I would recommend that people do. So that's probably going to be my next little hurdle to get over. I've sort of been a little bit, for whatever reason, like intimidated by the process of hiring a virtual assistant, even though I know that it would be life-changing for me. So right now I don't have anything. Sometimes my mom comes over and helps package up orders and stuff, but
That's always good. When I had my apparel company, that's what I used to do. I used to have like people come over, help tag and like do all these things. It was so funny. I mean, you turn the whole house into like your building.
Right.
How long did it take for you to start generating the revenue that you wanted to generate so you could go and start working into Etsy full time? How long did that take?
Well, my path was a little bit up and down because we moved like 4 times and had 2 more babies since I have started my Etsy shop. So there were several years that it would begin to pick up momentum, and then I'd have a baby or we'd move, or I'd have something that sort of set me back a little bit, which is great. I mean, it's great that I was able to have this job that allowed that flexibility, but it sort of made for a path that's not totally linear. But I think I just looked back on my stats the other day, and I think it was probably about 2.5 years into it that I was making enough that I replaced my full-time income from when I was working at the bank.
I'm so grateful that you did have that opportunity to at least be able to be with your family during the pregnancy. I mean, just all that, it's so important, and people really miss out on that time because they are quick to have to go back to work, and maybe they only have 6 weeks off after they have the baby. I mean, just so many things where they have to just automatically go back to that 9 to 5 and not be able to spend that time.
Well, and I think it's really important to have what you're looking for. Like I just recently worked with a girl who said, I don't want a full-time job. Like, I just want this to be part-time. And I had to say, which I hope is always obvious, but I guess maybe it's not. And so I need to verbalize, like, I don't want to make you feel like the only way that you're successful is to make this into a full-time job. Your success looks different, but ultimately what I think almost all of us are looking for is the flexibility. If you want it to be a part-time job right now and a full-time job when your kids go to school, that's great. Like, I'm not here to tell you what that looks like for you, but the flexibility allows you to make that decision. If you want to take off, I mean, I took off 6 months after I had my last baby, and I wasn't sure I was going to go back to it. It was like, I think, I've got 3 kids now, there's a lot going on, whatever. And then she got to be like 6 months old, and I was like, oh, okay, yep, nope, I remember why I don't want to stay home. And so then I was able to go back to it. But just to have that flexibility was such a huge blessing in our lives.
Mm-hmm. I love that too. Cause like you said, everyone's success looks different. So it doesn't serve you well if you're working 40 hours a week and you're making this into a full-time business and this is not what you really wanted. That's maybe why you left your 9 to 5.
Right.
Anyway,
You've just replaced a corporate job with a job that you're just expecting just as much from yourself or requiring just as much. So,
exactly.
like I would never want somebody to say, somebody's shop might be successful with $1,000 a month, and somebody else's, it might be 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000, but it's not for me to say your shop is not successful until you hit $150,000 in sales. That's not, that's not my place.
Absolutely. I love that. So people need to define their own success.
Right.
Now, what about you? When you started generating revenue and you started seeing that there was growth, did you start creating sales plans for yourself, or did you start setting some revenue goals for yourself per month?
Oh, absolutely. I'm super type A, so I love some goal setting. And for me, I was never able to say like, this is the point that I'm going to be only this successful and I don't want it to grow. My husband would say, especially in the beginning, not so much now, but in the beginning, he was like, what if you just say, I want $2,000 a month in sales, and then you close it down after that. This is all I'm doing. Then I'll take the rest of the month off. And I was like, that's not really my vision for what I want. Like I'm too much of a goal setter to be able to say like, I'm capping this myself and I'm not allowing it to grow. I always wanted to see how much can I do?
Absolutely.
And so, so I definitely, for whatever reason, my experience with Etsy is that the revenue growth is not really a linear progress. Like there would be points that I would be like stagnant, and then there would be a big jump, and then it would stagnate after the jump, and then a jump again. So it was always like, once I go up to this jump, whether it's 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever per month, I want it to stay there and to see how far I can go. So it's always been really exciting and kind of a challenge for me.
Now, what about inventory wise? Being in retail on that side of things, sometimes when you're first getting started, you have no idea how much inventory is actually realistic. So sometimes new entrepreneurs go and spend thousands on inventory and they haven't made a single sale yet, or even pre-sale. What do you recommend for any new entrepreneur who is looking to start with a product-based business when it comes to inventory?
I recommend that people start really slow.
Yeah.
And that they really listen to their customers and the direction that the customers want to go in, because it's not always the direction that you envision for what you think people want. And I mean, when I started out, I just did burp cloths and bibs. And then as people started asking, they would ask for shirts that went along with the burp cloths, or then they would ask for a blanket, or then whatever. It expanded. And then actually, as I've gotten more successful, I've taken it down again just to control that inventory. Because especially with clothing, like if you have different colors and different sizes, it gets to be it's so much inventory, which is then so much money that's tied up in inventory. But it is also a lot of work to manage the inventory. Like I don't have anyone that helps me. So, if I have 12 different shirt options or whatever, it's a lot to be able to keep everything in stock all the time and to know what I have available, and then things sell out, and then it's just a mess.
Yeah, inventory is one of those things where I totally understand your pain. I've been there and done that too many times. And I'm like, there's days where you're like, how am I sold out when it says I have 3 over here? Like, what is happening?
Yeah. And Etsy does not have a very good inventory management process. Like it doesn't manage your inventory across multiple listings. So if you say I have this shirt, but then you offer all the colors on that listing, but then you duplicate it and offer the same colors, it doesn't sync them. Oh, so wow. It is really easy to get out of sorts.
Now, what about overcoming some fears and maybe even some self-doubt when it came to starting your store? Any challenges that you might have faced there?
Oh yeah, I think that's really hard for a lot of people. I think for me, I'm kind of like the opposite of a lot of people on Etsy, because I started this wanting an entrepreneurial venture, not necessarily a creative hobby. So for me, it was the creative side of it that I felt like the imposter part. I was like, when you say like, oh, your products are so creative. And I'm like, even now, 6 years later, I'm kind of like, I don't really think I'm that creative. But I think it's really hard for you to step out of what you're doing to say like, I'm doing an okay job at this. Maybe, I mean, the creative side is not what comes naturally to me at all. I love the business side of it so much more, but I'm doing okay with it. And I think there's an opposite mentality with a lot of Etsy sellers where they see themselves as a creative or sort of artistic free spirit. And they're like, I don't do numbers. Like I can't deal with the financial part of that. And that's a really limiting belief because first off, anybody can do it. I mean, it's not that complicated, but there's also people who can help you. You can hire a CPA to deal with your numbers if you really just refuse to do that. So it's limits your ability to think about what you're able to do when you're just like, I can't do this. I can't do the marketing side. I don't know how to market. Mm-hmm. Well, especially now with so much online and so much social media. I mean, anybody can learn this. You don't have to be like a marketing CEO to be able to do something that's profitable.
Well, and I think too, when you're in business for yourself, like people forget when you work for a corporation, you start off in a role where you're surrounded around other people who are doing these roles for you. So say if you're in sales, maybe you have a marketing team, you have an accounting team, you have all these different teams around you, a customer service team, and you're just only focusing on sales. So no one expects you to know how to do it all. And it's okay to be in that beginning stage of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure this out and I'm going to take some classes or go learn from some people who do.
Yeah. And there are so many people, I mean, there's such an opportunity to learn online now through courses and blogs and podcasts. And I mean, there's so much information. So it's really, I think, honestly, harder to narrow down what you want to learn or who you want to learn it from than it is to find information. You can find anything online. So
absolutely. What advice would you give to a new entrepreneur who is looking to start their business? Or maybe they have started their business, but they're in that stagnant place and trying to figure out how to grow from there. What advice would you give them?
I think my advice would really be to seek out some learning opportunities in whatever niche part of it that you're having problems with, whether it's marketing or whether it's the finance side of it or whatever, because I mean, could you figure it out on your own? Probably, but it's going to be really time consuming. And it also gets really discouraging if you just feel like I have no idea what I'm doing and I don't know how to figure it out and I don't want to deal with it. It gets really discouraging to feel like you're kind of in that alone. So to seek out either the learning or the community or some aspect that combines the two of them so that you feel like you're not just like walking blind by yourself, trying to like fish through all the information that Google has and you have no idea what you're doing.
Now, what is your favorite part about being your own boss?
I love all of it. My very, very favorite part is the flexibility. I think it is so amazing to be able to, my kids got off of school, they had like an early release day or whatever, and I can pick them up at 12, or my husband had to leave work early he had to leave for work early this morning. So I took him to school and, I just spent last week in San Diego and I was able to still bring my computer and email people and whatever, not sending out orders, but I'm also in control of when those orders get sent out and how and what I promise to my customer. So having that flexibility, especially in this season of my life with my oldest child is only 7, so they're not old. And just to have that flexibility is just amazing to me. I can't think of any sort of opportunity that would be better.
I love that. And I love San Diego, by the way. I'm like, that is going to be my retirement place and I'm going there.
Right. I've never been. This was my first trip. But I told my husband I might never come back because the weather is amazing and the food is awesome.
Now, Lauren, how can we stay in connection with you?
My website is creativemomboss.com and you can find me also on Instagram at creativemomboss too.
Well, Lauren, thank you again for taking the time to meet with me today. I appreciate it.
If you've enjoyed today's episode of the Corporate Misfit podcast, we invite you to check out the Corporate Misfit Club. The Corporate Misfit Club is the essential resource for female entrepreneurs who are looking to start or grow a business they actually love. Whether you are a seasoned entrepreneur in your startup phase or simply thinking about taking the leap into entrepreneurship, we've got your back, girl. With our extensive course library, monthly training, exclusive members-only discount perks, and unlimited tools. We also have a supportive community of women where our members share stories, experiences, their wins, and business tips. The Corporate Misfit Club is the perfect place to be to start, launch, or grow a business. So check it out at corporatemisfitclub.com.